Blacks in technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome, everyone, to the Blacks in Technology Tech Talk podcast, a show where we talk to Black people who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, change makers, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. The Bit Tech Talk podcast is where they show how they are stomping the divide by sharing their stories, experiences, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the Black in technology community. On this week's episode, I'm proud to introduce you to our guest, Oladosu Teyibo. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I am well. I'm so glad to have you on our Entrepreneurship podcast. I've heard great things about analog teams, and I just can't wait to dig in. So without further ado, can you tell us more about yourself and where you are from?
Yeah, so I am born and raised in the U.S., but I'm Nigerian. And I also lived in Nigeria as a young man. I live in Maryland, and I've lived in Maryland, D.C. I've also traveled quite a bit, lived in Kenya, lived in Nigeria, as mentioned, and lived in Ghana as well.
Very cool. And we share that. My dad's Nigerian. I'm curious, whereabouts in Nigeria when you lived there?
So I grew up actually I was very far out of Lagos in Ogbomoso, which is Oyo State. But now my brother, who has a similar background to myself, lives in Lagos and is a cashew farmer. So most of the time I'm in Lagos, I am on the farm.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes. So my dad's originally from Benin, but he eventually moved to River State, Port Harcourt. People make fun of me when I pronounce it that way. But but yeah, that's where I go home to when I visit. But it's been several years. I'm due back, and I'm really excited to go, hopefully next year, with my family for the first time. So wonderful to hear about that. Yes, we have that in common. And I'm really curious about your transition, right? So you were working, and then tell me about your desire and interest in starting your own company. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I worked for General Dynamics IT right out of college, and I essentially was looking at my growth and my career growth and noticed that the more I grew, and the further I go as an engineer, the less and less likely people look like me. And that bothered me a lot. And so I thought about leaving the job and going to another job, of course, and having that same experience, and or deciding to do something on my own in order to give back to our community. And I took the latter. And the process was, I actually sold computers first. That was my first entrance into doing business internationally. I sold customized computers that I would build myself and sell them in Nigeria, and made quite a bit of money in a short amount of time, and used that to then invest in other ventures. One was a natural hair care company that still exists, Frowetry. That's frowetry.us, which focuses on women with 4C hair and building, delivering hair products for them. And then also I invested in two other companies. One was an automotive company, as a lot of people would tell you when they're from our communities, when they first started business, they try to sell cars. And then lastly was Analog Teams, which then became the full focus and the understanding that we had an opportunity to do something that really impacted the entire community and the entire diaspora, as well as the continent itself. So I met up with my partners, Maisha Aroga, who I worked with at GDIT, and then also my other co-founder, Yawa Dantor, who I actually went to university with and worked at KPMG at the time. And we came together and said, we can build a culture, we can build a company that actually is inclusive and is focused on Black people. So much so that, you know, I always say, like, hey, look, if for the ladies, if you're having a bad hair day, right, it's understandable. You know, you may not have to get on camera early in the morning because we understand. We love our Black women. And so those type of things and things that make you feel like you are actually at home, where you're at a company that is built for you. That's what we set out to do from the beginning.
That is amazing. I love to hear that story. And we have that in common as well. I worked for General Dynamics Mission Systems, but I exclusively did legal work in support of GDIT's infrastructure, engineering opportunities with the government for a couple of years. And so it's the more you talk, I'm like, wow. And then just your guts, right? And your ability to leave what someone would say is like a secure job or secure career path and forge out on your own and work in partnership with friends you've gone to school with and on things that, like you said, are high impact and create opportunities for our people in particular. I just really admire that. And it's a lot of what Blacks in Technology is about too, right? Is creating a space for us to succeed and elevate in tech. And I like the premise of making sure that our people are helping each other, lifting each other up. I think that's really important. So I just love to hear how folks get started.
BIT is always focused on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist the community and our members with their continued professional growth and development. If you'd like to partner with us, send an email, inquiries@blacksintechnology.net.
I'm also curious about the naming. How did you come up with the name for Analog Teams?
So funny enough, the initial name, when the idea just arose, came about, and we were thinking just of what it would be. We were still in ideation phase. I called it Afrotech, and later that year or a year after,
no way.
Afrotech came out and launched, their first conference, and I was heartbroken because if anyone who knows me from back then, a lot of my friends would tell you, like, yeah, he was running with that name. But then what happened? We were brainstorming, and we do this thing where we don't care about names anymore. It's the fun thing to do, but it doesn't so matter. I always mention that people still say names like Google, right? Uber. And if you think about it, those are just not real words that you would ever utilize. So it's the quality of the service behind it. But Yao Adantor came and just, I remember he sent me a message, analog, and I ran with it. I was elated. I was like, this is it. And the concept is that people are analog. And even though we are going to a digital future, it's important to remember that the people matter the most, right? And the people are human and they're analog and they're not digital. And so how do you bridge that gap? And it's done well because it's also a play on just the fact that it's contrary to where we're headed in a sense, right? And we actually started off as Analog Africa because a lot of our work has been in Africa, in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, DRC. So we've done a lot of work in Africa, and that was our initial focus. But we don't control the narrative on what people think about Africa, and we acknowledge that. When I say Africa to you, you think of home, you think of happiness, you think of a continent that's growing and it's beautiful Black people. But some other people, including our Black people, see Africa as, poor, lions. People literally have asked me with no malintent, I heard that they have lions in the street in the towns. I'm like, why do you think that's real? But just that concept. So over time, we actually changed to Analog Teams because we're about team building. And that's kind of where we've found our niche. We also went through a federal phase where we're Analog Federal. So we've gone through a lot of rebranding over the years. But this is where we've settled and really found what means to us.
Excellent. No, that's really, really interesting on, like you said, the evolution and just the meaning and intentionality behind it.
Do you have a product or service that you would like to share with the BIT audience? Or maybe you'd like to support the BIT community and do your part in helping us with stomping the divide? Start by sponsoring one of our podcasts. Please email us at contactus@blacksintechnology.net.
I am curious, going maybe a step backwards, like when did you first become interested in tech? I know you said you studied, it sounds like a STEM area when you're in school, but what did it start even earlier than that, before school? Or when did you realize this was an area you wanted to work in?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've always loved computers since I was young. Loved playing video games on computers, etc. Working on them, figuring out how to get around like systems, etc. And I guess I assumed it should be like a natural course when I was going to university. I figured, why wouldn't I do something that taught me more about computers? So initially I was a computer engineer student. But it just didn't mash with the time because I also ran D1 track at UMBC. So I switched to information systems, which was vastly different. But my focus was mainly on sports until I kind of got a notion of how important technology is and the way of the future. I started to put a lot of intentionality on that. And that's kind of what spurred me taking it to the next level instead of it just being a job, but being something that I embodied as a whole.
Wow. Yeah, I was the same way. I was a gamer and I'd love to play solitaire, anything on the computer. And I wasn't sure how it would manifest itself. And at first I thought I was pre-med and I quickly realized that was not for me. I like to talk and argue, but I still love tech. And then eventually I found my way after law school into tech. But I love what you said about just kind of like leaving yourself open to discovery too. I think that's really important for some folks who are in tech or trying to get into tech.
What's up, everyone? We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Blacks in Technology Big Tech Talk podcast. Do you or someone you know have a dope story that they want to share with our BIT audience? Blacks in Technology is seeking guests to be on our podcast. We're looking to highlight the journeys and experiences of Black women and men in the tech industry. So if you know of someone, send them our way. Shoot us an email to contactus@blacksintechnology.net or click on the link in the show notes and fill out our form. We're looking to hear from you.
In my capacity leading the Charlotte chapter of Blacks in Tech, I meet people all the time who are looking to change careers or break into tech. And they're always like, oh, do I need to do a STEM degree, or what training do I need to have? And sometimes I tell them it's just about curiosity and willingness to learn new terms and different things. So it's not always like a cookie cutter recipe to get into tech or to sustain yourself in tech. I feel like some of my best moves in my career have come from just like opportunities that kind of came out of some work that I was doing, or my interests had changed and just created new interesting opportunities for myself. And so to talk more about your work at Analog Teams, I'm curious about the heavy lifting that goes into actually getting the job placement to occur, right? Because you may have a talent pool, you may have employers who are interested in hiring, but how do you successfully bridge the two in a way that is successful for everyone involved? That seems like a lot of hard work, and I'm just curious what your strategy has been in that area.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, our whole focus is about being the best at what we do. That's why we lead with the fact that we're recruiters. It has nothing to do with like us being Black or whatever the case may be. We're just the best at what we do. And so when we're even looking to hire, we rarely get out or look for opportunities where they're only looking for diverse candidates, so they hire us to find diverse people. We care about you hiring Analog Teams to build your company. You want the best recruiters, you hire us, and we come and deliver. The fact of the matter is that you are working with Black individuals. So your company may not have that perspective to even know how to look for diverse candidates, how to get them into your pipeline. We already do because our networks are like that, we are like that, etc. So naturally, when we have a job rep, we care most about who the best candidate for the position. We don't care what you look like, black man, white woman, Asian, black woman. It doesn't matter. We care about the right person. Naturally, we are able to identify and speak to adding candidates of color, black candidates in particular, because we know where to look. We already have a pipeline. We already have connections. And that is the value add of working with analog teams. But our intentionality is being the best recruiters that we can be, and ensuring that in all that we do, what you get from this black company is a high output, better than anything else you can get anywhere else. That solves all of the issues first, right? That opens your mind. And then when we've built a level of trust, we work with organizations, specifically hiring managers, to actually understand the mathematics behind hiring a diverse candidate in specific roles. Because you're looking for someone from Stanford or Berkeley, where I recently was talking, there's like 500 or 600 black students at Berkeley or something of the sort. So you want someone from there who's also worked at Amazon. So of this 500, 5 of them went to Amazon, right? And now you're basically saying, I need to find a diverse candidate that's a needle in the haystack, versus opening up your metrics and looking at Howard University and understanding that they have great students that are coming out of there, Morehouse, Spelman, etc., and being able to kind of change the way they even look at the way they are hiring. Because sometimes you just want someone who's going to come in here young and hungry, or old and mature, right? Tenured, experienced. And either way, we can bring that to you. Sometimes we just have to change your mind on what you're looking for. And that's really where we excel. High level of delivery. And then once we've built a level of trust, we're able to get you to see and think outside of the box.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so critical to just having those conversations around the why, for why us, and being comfortable in your leadership capacity to broker those conversations. Because sometimes I'll meet with recruiters and they just don't have the language, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes that's part of my role, is giving them some of the language to help them as they navigate conversations in their relationships to create these opportunities. And I'm curious too about your success rate with candidates from Africa in particular, because just putting my employment lawyer hat on, when I used to do that type of work, obviously, companies do have visa programs to sponsor and outsource candidates abroad. But did you find there are any obstacles to any of that? Or how has recruiting specifically candidates from Africa, where we know there's a wealth of talent, how has that worked for you, getting them here or getting them new roles?
Actually, most of our candidates that we hire are in the U.S. So we usually, we work with American-based startups. So we are hiring people in America for those startups. Where we utilize African talent, the African talent is hired by Analog as recruiters or recruiter support. Yeah, so they are actually hiring. There are people, we have people in our team in Africa that are hiring Americans for jobs in America. So that is a lot of our focus. We have done some staff augmentation. As I mentioned, we're a software development company first. And so there are quite a few startups that we work with where we actually host their team in Africa. So they work directly with Analog teams, and we handle all the employment issues, the contractor issues, et cetera. So that has created that alleviates some of that burden. But 99% of our focus is actually in recruiting Americans for American companies.
Understood. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, there's still opportunity in there woven into what you said, right? And that's amazing that you found a framework that fits to still allow for that type of engagement. So that's great. And I like to ask entrepreneurs like yourself who are very successful, who inspires you? Or was there a pivotal moment or time that you met someone, or, some people say it's their family or mentors who came into their life, what have you, that really inspired you or continue to inspire you with the work that you're doing?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is actually my family. My brother, my mother, my sister, and my father. All of my family are built with entrepreneurs. My brother, as I mentioned, is a cashew farmer, and working with him to see that dream come true, called UPGS Initiative, Urban Planning for Growth and Sustainability, and the ability to use small scale farmers and train them on how to operate on large plots of land to change unused land into profitable land, and to see the evolution of planting acres and acres of cashews by hand initially is something that you just don't see often in the world. My sister is also a huge director of PR in fashion for Ogara Group, which does luxury brands with vehicles. Just the way I've seen her navigate rooms in which she's the only Black woman, and completely change companies and the way people see companies, and handle big fires, things that you know PR issues that these companies go through when they're dealing, especially with Black folk, and being able to handle that and navigate those waters and come to proper conclusions that benefit both sides, right? Which is important when brokering a deal. Seeing that has been magnificent and masterful in her skill set and how she's grown that. And then, of course, my mother, just a hardworking woman that anyone who meets her understands what she's done. She's a teacher, and the amount of lives that she's changed. She's worked in inner city DC and in some other places, and the amount of lives that she's altered and changed the entire trajectory is teachers are underappreciated in general. And my father was an entrepreneur, and I've always seen entrepreneurs, from his perspective of being able to create from nothing, right? Being able to create here in the States and also in Nigeria, building businesses. Being around my family alone just inspires me. And I'm the youngest. So, I've got this chip on my shoulder, right? I want to make everyone proud. So it drives me and it inspires me to do more, because I see greatness on a daily basis. And so no matter, when you mentioned, very successful entrepreneurs, in my mind, I'm like, I laugh, because there's so much more to go that I often don't take the moment to even, count the success, because we're driving, and I want my team to constantly drive for this goal of greatness. We are trying to obtain a level of greatness never seen before, and specifically never seen from an all-Black company. We're just under 40 people globally. And so just to get into the company and you meet the different cultures, the Kenyan Kikuyu, the Nigerian Igbo and Yoruba working together, and the Zulu, and then Dembele, and then we've got Black Americans, et cetera, all working together and delivering at a high output. What we're trying to create, we want the world to see it and then appreciate it in a way that it opens doors for everyone else. And so that inspiration comes from being around my family and seeing them grind and work and get it out the gutter, right? And build a burgeoning empire.
Yes, definitely can relate to that too, as far as just absorbing some of those lessons and hard fought wins in my family and the entrepreneurs in my family too. It definitely was influential for me and how I go about doing some of my endeavors. So that's amazing to hear. And the other thing, just two more questions for you. So one question I like to ask is, what's one thing you wish you had known before you launched your business that if you could help an up-and-coming entrepreneur, you would let them know?
Two things. One is one thing that I think I was trying to understand early, which is make sure you have a team. Do not go it alone, and understanding how to work with a team. That's number one. You should not, let me say you should not, because you can, but you should not take this endeavor on alone, because there will be days that you're weak. And it feels so much greater when someone else is strong for you and carries the business on your off days, and vice versa. So learning how to share the ball, how to make sure everyone wins, is something that our community needs to learn. My first company was Teyibo Tech under my last name, and I realized, I don't think it's hard to motivate and inspire people to want to work for your last name, right? And it's something I realize we do it because we want to own something, right? We want to have something in our name that stands the test of time so we can build our legacy. But at Analog, I've realized that the dream that we had working with so many different individuals is so much bigger than myself. At this point, I'm just a cog in the wheel, the representation of all the wonderful things that my team is doing. So building a team, and if you can, go to another startup that does something in the realm of what you want to do and pick up some things. Be a big, no matter how much you make, be a big contributor, a large contributor in the company so you can sit at the high table and see the moves that they're making, because there's a lot to learn and a lot of painful lessons. And if you can just have a framework, it can drastically change the trajectory of your company.
Where would you like to travel anywhere in the world?
The country that's on my tongue is Namibia. I don't know anything about it. I have not done any studies about it, but I've been saying that country for a while, and I just want to see what's there, who's there, and how the people are there.
So cool. I heard there's an elephant walk that's a must experience, and that the coffee is pretty good, but I've never been as well. I would love to go.
Yeah, I'm always looking for, I always tell people I'm a big proponent of just traveling to Africa. There are 54 countries in Africa, and so if I have time to go visit, I'm going to go visit the continent and try and see and learn something more about myself there.
Wonderful. And I guess I lied. I did have one more question for you. How can folks get in touch with you after this podcast?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email, at teyibo@gmail.com. That's TEYIBO at analogteams.com. Or you can reach out to me on Instagram, analog.teyibo, or you can reach me on LinkedIn, Oladosu Teyibo. Any way you want to find me, I'm there. Communicate, reach out to me. I'm really responsive, love to learn, even if it's just a shout out or you want some advice or anything like that. Reach out to me, I'm available.
Well, Oladosu, it's been a pleasure meeting you, my friends, and hearing your story. And thank you so much for your time today on the Blacks in Technology Tech Talk podcast. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology.